Hi guys, Tracy here with an early morning layout using the It's My Life kit from Scraptastic, and I'm just having a look through the papers here. I have this piece of light blue cardstock from the kit that I want to use for a background, so I'm going to put a panel of pattern paper over the part that has some cutouts in it. I had used it for, I think I used that for a card that I made. I know I made cards. I never make cards. I kind of hate making cards because I'm really bad at it. But I did make some cards this month, so I'll put that video up too, maybe today. They're nothing to write home about or anything, but I will post them for you guys. So I'm just measuring the width that I need in order to cover up the chunks that I cut out of that piece of paper. And I'm going to get my trimmer. This is my Caterpillar Pro, which I do like. I know some people have trouble with it cutting not straight, but mine seems to cut straight. I do always make sure that I have lined it up with the grid lines as well as with the top ruler thingy, and mine seems to cut straight. So yeah, so I have this piece of bokeh paper, which is from the My Mind's Eye collection, and I'm just going to, it's from the Now and Then collection from My Mind's Eye, and it came in the kit, and I'm just attaching it to this piece of striped paper from the Basic Gray Capture collection, and I'm going to just glue it right onto the piece of background paper. And now I have some sticky parts because I didn't think that through very well, and leave some glue off of the bottom part. So I just grabbed a piece of paper from my scraps and covered up the sticky part so it doesn't stick to my table and stick to everything else that I might inadvertently set it down on. So my photo is 5 by 3.75. It's a little bit of a different sized photo, so I thought I would include it. That's for Mary. Try to always remember to put the photo sizes now that I got a couple of requests from Mary, who is a longtime viewer of mine. So I am going through some of the die cuts in the kit and trying to figure out what little bits and pieces. I was hoping to frame the photo with the back side of the bokeh paper, which is that really pretty orange vertical stripe. I love framing photos in I said vertical, but it's a diagonal stripe, and I love framing photos in that. And then I realized there was another piece of that paper that was big enough to make a frame, so that's what I did. I really wanted to use that chevron paper, but it has too much of a white base to it, and the other papers I'm using have a cream base. So I'm going to, because I want to have torn edges on this, I'm just tearing off a little bit of the edge of this so it has a torn look, and then I'm going to have this kind of horizontal piece of the speech bubble paper that's going to stick out underneath like that. I was going to put it in between the photo and the mat, and then I later decided to change it. Now for outlining, I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm trying to make this one a little bit different in both the layout and in some of the things I'm doing. So I'm using my Platinum Zig pen, and I got this quite some time ago, and the reason I got it was to do shadows on some journaling that when I was doing some kind of learning different ways to do handwriting. And when you do your handwriting in black, then you can go back and kind of stagger it a little bit and put this gray behind it, and it looks like there's a shadow. But today I'm not using it for that. I'm using it for outlining, and this color of gray makes it look like the papers are outlined in pencil, and I kind of like that look. I think it's kind of cool. It doesn't look exactly like pencil, but it looks a little bit like pencil. So I'm going to outline all of my major papers in this, so all of the major elements on this layout. So you just saw me outline that bokeh paper, and I outlined the stripe. It's a very, very subtle look, so you'll notice it's not nearly as bold as when I do my black outlining, which is what I usually do, and occasionally I'll do a colored light outline. But it's just enough to give the papers a finished look. And I do want this layout to be softer than some of my other layouts, that especially with the kits this month, they have lots of bold, bright colors in them. So I'm trying to make this one be a little bit softer. I kind of wanted that placed a little bit lower. So I often use my grid mat as my working mat there, as a way to make sure that everything is lined up. I don't obsess too much over lining things up, as you know if you've watched some of my videos, but on a layout like this that has some definite horizontal and vertical lines, I do want this one to be fairly lined up. So I want to use the Insta Love, but again, I'm trying to shake it up a little bit, and I normally stick those kinds of things in either the top or the left-hand side of my layers, and so this time I'm going to put it outside of my layers and put it at the bottom and have it kind of sitting on top of the photo instead of underneath. And I'm taking advantage of the fact that that bottom corner of that photo has lots of dark colors in it, so I think that will provide some contrast with the white letters. Again, I'm just going through some of the die cuts that came in the kit. We got a lot of really great die cuts, a couple of full packages of October Afternoon die cuts from the Daily Flash collection, and we got some Ellie's Studio die cuts, and then we also have the cut-aparts from from not Ellie's Studio, but from Ormolu. And those are specifically designed for this kit, so they look great. And all of those are combined in that little blue bin that you see there. I just stuck them all in so I can kind of go through them. Oh, my daughter brought me some yogurt and granola because it's very early in the morning. It's like 8 o'clock, I think, when I started this layout, which is early for a Sunday morning. So I'm just snapping a photo of how I have those embellishments set out. And then I was going to outline in gray some of those elements, and then I decided not to. Again, I'm trying to go with more of a light and airy look on this one. So the lack of outlining helps to make things look more like they're kind of floating and they don't look so heavy. Going to put some pop dots on the back of this banner that I just cut out of the Ellie's Studio tabbed card. I'm playing around a little bit with the placement just because I want to put that flare badge so it covers the strange elements that are left over on that banner. And I'm trying to decide whether the banner is going to hang off over into the blue space like that, or if it's going to go more layered over the orange paper. And I decided to layer it more over the orange paper. Sorry about my head there. The placement of the camera is a little funny right now. I think I'm going to move it back soon, so don't worry. I just pulled this picture back up because I want to talk about placement for a minute. And I'm just going to tell you what I think about when I'm trying to place a large element like this on a background like this. And this is by no means the right or only way of doing it. It's just the things that I think about when I'm doing it. But basically, I'm trying to decide where I want I know I want it at about this height because I want some things down here and I want them to breathe a little bit, and I'm going to put my title down here. So I'm kind of trying to decide where to put this. And when I'm doing it, you see that there's this big line, vertical line that goes through my layout. And basically, I don't want to dissect anything important with that line, even though it goes behind the picture. Your brain kind of still sees it, and I don't want to place it like this so that it's going right through Olivia's face, because that's going to look awkward to my mind. I don't know if it'll look awkward to everybody, but for me it looks better with just scooched over a little tiny bit, even if the line grazes the side of her face or her glasses, which are not her. My daughter, you'll see her with glasses on in almost every picture. She doesn't wear glasses. She finds fashion glasses, or these are movie theater glasses with the 3D lenses pushed out of them. So her best friend wears glasses, and so she needs to wear glasses. So anyways, so I'm really mindful of that strong line when I'm placing this. And if I didn't have that line there, if it was just this paper going right against that paper, it might not be such a strong vertical element, and I might not need to think about that so much. But I just thought I'd share with you that that is what I'm kind of thinking about as I do this. I also don't want it to be too close over here to the side, so I might come up with a compromise that involves the line kind of going through the side of her face. But even that looks better than that. I think that's too much, whereas if it weren't for that line, I might have preferred to put this photo over here, but I'm going to push it over a little tiny bit, bring it back down closer to the amazing, and that's where I'm going to put it. Okay, so there was a little insight into how I placed that element. I forgot that was there. Um, yes, so now I have all of my roller, not all of them, but a handful of roller date stamps out, and I'm looking for a phrase that I might want to use, and I ended up picking one. And I also have my Amy Tangerine roller phrase stamp, which I have an index card that just has an example of all the phrases because they are backwards, so it's hard to read it on the stamp itself. So I picked out a date phrase. The one that I picked out is a day in the life, and I looked up the date of the photo and am stamping it with red stays on. It's a bit of a glossy surface. I don't know if regular ink would have smudged or not, so when in doubt, since I was using red, which is a color I have in stays on, I just went with stays on. There it is up close. I just stamped a whole bunch of them and just stuck it in there on the side like that. And now I'm going to, sorry that some of this is off screen, but I am putting little pop dots on the amazing arrow, and I am basically making it so that the two ends stick up a little bit and the middle sits down. So there's regular glue in the middle part of that. You'll see it in a second. And then there it is. And then I just added that Instagram flare badge just with a pop dot. And I put the today down, and I also use glossy accents to attach that camera. Sorry that all that happened off screen. Now I'm thinking about putting Say Cheese and You on Camera up there in the corner. I'm not entirely sure that I want something up there because I kind of like the look of the rectangular elements kind of jutting out into the plain blue cardstock, and those die cuts up there kind of soften it. I had a look at the letter stickers that came in the kit because a lot of letter stickers actually come in this kit, so I would like to use those up rather than go into my stash, but obviously I have a pretty big stash here of letter stickers to choose from. So the blue was just not quite the right blue. Sorry, what I'm talking about is the blue letter stickers that came in the kit were not quite the right color of blue, and I didn't want to use the red. So I'm here looking for, I know I've got a tiny bit of craft element on this layout already, so I'm looking at some of those craft ones. I also look at some blue, and some blue that's more of the right blue that I'm looking for. And I also pulled out the gray because there are lots of gray elements on this layout as well. Decided to go with the gray. And I'm just making sure I have enough letters, and those October Afternoon Mini Market letter stickers come with a whole lot of letters on a sheet. They've been around for a while. I don't know if they're still making them, but I have a huge stash from back when they were making them, if they're not anymore. And they come with so many on a sheet that they really last forever and ever. So the title of this is After School Besties. I'm just spelling that out, and then I'm going to cut out the words so that I can play around with the placement a little bit. And yeah, so we try not to use the word best friend and BFF and that sort of thing too much, but this is probably Olivia's closest friend. She went through a phase where using the word BFF was causing a lot of problems with her peer group because she was actually friends with a lot of people and everybody's feelings were getting hurt. So we try not to use the term BFF, but for the purpose of this title, I thought I would pull out the word besties because it's a fun kid-like word that is just, it fit. So I want to layer something with that yellow and white, or I guess it's yellow and cream element, but I'm having trouble finding the right thing, but it's going to come along in a second. Yep, there it is. That orange is elsewhere in the layout, the orange striped paper that I used to mat the photo, and so I really like the look of that. But I need to bring something blue down there because it's kind of lots of orange and yellow, which are similar colors, and I just want something to contrast. So I'm pulling out some elements that are the right colors, but they're not exactly the right. I thought about cutting out some of those little chevrons at the bottom of that thing. So because they're not the right size and shape, I'm just going to use a punch here. It's a Martha Stewart heart confetti punch, and I'm just going to sprinkle a couple of little hearts there. I'm playing around with how I might put them on. So I think I'm going to start by putting the orange element on because that's the bottom part of my layers. And next I'm going to put a phrase on this little die cut. These are from October Afternoon, both of these die cuts. And it says sweet something or something, I think it says something sweet, but I'm going to accidentally type it backwards or stamp it backwards. And I'm just inking the part with one of the words. So I put sweet something on there instead of something sweet, which is okay. It still makes sense. The reason I'm saying sweet something is that they're making Japanese candy and that's the activity that they're doing. So although I'm not going to journal about that or write it anywhere else, I'm just kind of alluding to it in this little sweet something word phrase. So I just used my ATG and then I went back and added some staples, more for visual element than anything else. And this layout is mostly paper and cards and chipboard. It's not, I don't do any sewing on it. This is exactly the kind of layout that I would sew on. I'm not sure why I didn't. I just decided not to. And I don't have a whole lot of, like, there's no enamel dots or anything. There's not a whole lot of texture going on this one. But every once in a while I like to just do something that's a little bit more plain and doesn't necessarily have a lot of that stuff going on. So this would be one of those. I could have easily added some sewing to this one. I would have, if I were to add some sewing, I would use white thread and I would go along the bottom of each of those words, so after school and besties, and then I'd probably do a little bit of vertical sewing right along where that tag is that I put stamped the date on, and maybe a couple of horizontal lines underneath of the Insta Love, or I don't know. I'm going back to my Platinum Zig Writer and I am outlining these hearts. And I find when I'm outlining hearts, if I go off the edge, it really makes the heart look quite bad. So I'm going back and I'm repunching and re-outlining that third heart, just being careful to not go off the edge. Hearts look a lot better with a little bit of, when you outline them with a little bit of space around the outline. Using my glossy accents, which just a teensy little bit is all you need, and I find glossy accents is a lot easier to control than my zig, than the Tombow mono adhesive that I sometimes use. So now I want to put another one of these chipboard arrows, and I'm going to put it right there because that Ellie Studio banner that I made is just a little too plain. It doesn't have much on it. So thought again about doing that and then changed my mind, which was my initial impulse anyways, was to not do that, but I wanted to wait until the very end to make that decision about whether that would happen or not. I'm going to cut off the edges here. And now I'm going to go and get my mists and clean up a little bit first. I do clean up a little bit as I go, and I'm going to get my box for my mists and my samples. Going to pick my colors. I thought about using watercolor Mr. Huey's, but it's just too much of a dirty look to it. It's got some brown in with the blue, so it looks a little bit dirty. So I went with Seafoam instead. And I'm just going to mask off my photo, and I wanted it to be blue and gray, so the gray that I'm using is Mr. Huey's Silver, and you can see it really absorbs into pattern paper quite quickly and nicely, but it sits on top of the cardstock, and so it's going to be darker where it lands on the cardstock than it is where it lands on the pattern paper, and it just wasn't, I needed something else, so I added some white. Cleaning up the white ink off my fingers, and now I'm going to use my heat gun to try to dry some of these. It takes quite a while to dry the ink splatters that land on cardstock, so it's going to take me a little bit here. And then I did videotape the close-ups like I usually do. I kind of hold it up and show you all over the layout very slowly, but that didn't get captured on the video, so you're not going to see that. Instead, you will see some photos like I always put at the end. So thanks for watching, everybody, and I hope you have a really great scrappy week.